Good afternoon to all of you. In the last session, I have started with the domain or domain name system. Practically also we have implement in the lab. If it is remain, we'll uh, implement it, right? So today we will go with the another point related to DNS. Just give me a second. Okay, so whatever definition we have discussed, we'll discuss it with the diagram. Now, as we have discussed, the purpose of the DNS is to when the client will send the request, it will go to the server, and for that, whatever URL is entered by the user will provide the IP address, right? So host will send the query to the server and server will give the response. And we need a IP address, right? Whatever URL you are entering, user can remember the name, but system understand the numbers. So every website contains one IP address, and as a client, when you send the request, that request will go to the DNS server and server will give the response. So it's a step-by-step process, right? So quickly just go with the diagram first. See, user interaction will be handled at application layer and IP functionalities will be handled at a network layer. So that is the reason for DNS only two layers are mentioned over here, which is application layer and network layer. Okay, now let's go with the next point, that is domain namespace. So the whole functionality of DNS is a kind of hierarchical tree structure. One root node is there and number of servers we will discuss. So according to that, it will handle the functionality in DNS, right? As previously we have seen, one host will be there and server are there. So what kind of servers are available in a DNS, that we will discuss in detail. And the whole functionality is known as a domain name space. It's a kind of a large structure, tree structures. Like in data structure, you have learned that root node will be there, then a child node, parent node, child node, leaf node kind of structure is there. But in this case, for DNS, we will discuss about number of servers, like top level domain name server, then authoritative DNS server, recursive DNS server, that kind of servers are used, right? So one by one we will discuss next. So first you just give the title domain name space and note down this tree structure, which is also known as a namespace. So what it will do, it will provide the services by the internet for transmission control protocol and network internet protocol. So TCP/IP services will be provided by namespace. Okay. Now let's go with the next point. See, we will discuss this top level node in detail, right? So don't worry in that part. Now, for every domain particular level, say for example, in this structure only overall diagram is given like root to leaf node. But what kind of node are there? So for example, we will discuss about here. Like you know that in our day-to-day life we are using .net, .com, .org, .in. So that category I will discuss, right? But right now one example is given for .edu, like Marward University .ac.in, right? So that will come under education domain. Okay. Now inside education, it contains all over the world, like many countries. In a country, it contains many states, and in a many state, many city. And inside city, there are many universities. Like Rajkot contains many universities, right? And among that, like a Marwadi University. So in that university, again, they are having a many departments, like MBA, MCA, engineering. In a engineering, again, there are many branches like computer, IT, civil, mechanical, right? So ultimately you are doing what? From the root to the bottom, you are exploring this number of nodes. Okay, that is same represented over here in the diagram. And if you start tracing from the bottom to the root, so it will edit that everything with the dot. So to combine from the bottom to the top node in this namespace, domain namespace, what you have to do, you have to put the dot, like Marward University .ac.in, so that every dot contains some part, right? That we will discuss next. But right now we have to understand that what do you mean by domain names and label. So label are nothing but this edu, top university, department, computer. That all are the labels and that are part of the domain education, right? Okay, so just take your time and draw this diagram. Yes, Deepak, you can ask the question.
Ma'am, already done. Next lecture.
I'm just revising because I have to go with the next point, right?
Okay, okay.
As we know that in our every sessions we are revising few points and then we are going with the new, because these things will require when we'll discuss about zone.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Now see, over here is it possible that different domains are there and which are connected with the root. Like this is .com, .edu. This kind of domains are available in a network. And main domain can be divided into subdomains. So next we will discuss about two functionalities, that is partially qualified domain and a fully qualified domain. If you go with the .com, so that is fully qualified domain. Whereas if you start with previous example, like if you take any sub part of that domain, so that is considered as a partially qualified domain. But let me just go with this, right? Like over here, the hierarchy is given for these servers. .edu server, .com server, .us server. And that server can be again divided into subpart. Over here, you don't need to mug up this website name. You can give it your own, like google.com, gmail.com. But that must related to that com server, right? Like if you are going with edu, you can take any educational website. That is acceptable. But this is how this server will maintain the hierarchy and tree structure. Okay. So over here we will discuss about the definition. Right? Say for example, any big organizations like a Microsoft. So they are having their own server, they are having their own domain. They are part of .com. Microsoft.com means it comes under a commercial organization. Now, what happens that they are having their branches all over the globe, like in India, same way in another countries they are having their offices. In India also state-wise they are having their offices, right? So Microsoft.com is one private organization. They are having their sub branches like marketing.microsoft.com. Then they are having a development microsoft.com. So ultimately it's a part of main domain that is .com, right? So .com will consider as a zone and remaining sub part will be considered as a domain. So till now, whatever we are discussing in this diagram, you can go with multiple domains which are considered as a generic. Means in our day-to-day life, we are using it. Like I will give the name of all this, but if you know few one, we can discuss. Like GOV stands for
Government.
yes, correct. EDU for education. Then Aero for yes, correct. That is for aerospace or air force, right? Okay. So same way, just note down this all. You have to remember this, right? AERO that is for aerospace or airlines. BIZ for the business or funds. COM that is for commercial organization. Yeah, for any subdomain, it must related to any parent domain, right? Like previous one was the .com. Same way in this point, there are many domains are here. So subdomain, it's related to main domain, parent domain. Like BIZ, okay, COM that is for commercialization organization. Then COOP that is for cooperative organization. Info that is for information service provider. IND international organization. MIIL that is for military group. For the museum also, this server and domains are available, which will provide the information related to that. Name like as any individual person, if you want to purchase your domain, right? So you can do that. Net that is for network support center. ORG that is non-profit organization. And pro that is professional organization, right? So go with all the types of generic domains which are available in a network. Okay, now let's go with the next point. Another type that is a country domain like .in for India. Same way .ae for yes, United Arab Emirates, right? Correct. Same way FR that is for the France. US, United States, and ZW, that is for Zimbabwe. Right, so for countries we are having the domain. Okay, now TLD. So top level domain, it is responsible for all the generic domains, and what it will do, it will maintain the network solutions by maintaining that different servers. Like if any user will send the query to the .com, so .com server, one server will be there who will handle the query related to all that .com server URL. Then edu, all the edu requests will go to that server only. So top level domain is nothing but all the generic domains which are available in the network, and it will handle the request for that functionality. Next one, that is authoritative DNS server. Right, so this is a kind of server which will provide what? Host name to IP mapping for any organization. It can be maintained by organization or it can be maintained by the service provider. But it will maintain the host name and its IP address. Like at our university, we are having many students in many branches. So student's name, enrollment number is going to be maintained at a server, right? Same way in a network also, any user's host name and its IP address is going to be maintained by authoritative DNS server. Next one, that is local DNS name server. It's a kind of default name server. When we are creating practicals in a Cisco packet tracer, so you have observed that the IP address which we assign to the router, it will become a default gateway. Right, same way local server is available. Like any query will send from any network to the outside the network. At that time, first it will send to the local server. Now the reason is, if local server contains the information request by the client, so it will reply to the requested client. It will not forward in a network. It's similar to like web proxy or web caches. Right, first it will check on a local server. If the data is available, it will reply to the requested client. So this is about it's purely based on the website and functionality, and according to that only have to select the domain. ORG, that is for organization, whereas AERO, that is for specific aerospace and airlines. So that are completely two different domains. And according to that, have to create the server and systems and everything for the DNS.
No, ma'am. I mean, like, what is the impact if someone like intentionally used the org and then instead of using maybe for .com, so he missed it intentionally. So is there any impact behind that one?
But see, there is a procedure, right? When uh, suppose you have your own farm or you are hosting your own website, so there are number of procedure where you have to submit so many things, and based on that only you are able to host or to purchase any domain. Okay, another two types of servers, as I told, like authoritative and recursive servers are used, right? So over here, like authoritative name servers are like a phone book. Previously, before mobile phone and smartphones, somewhere it may be possible you have used. I have used BSNL landline phones also, right? That only available. So at the time, what happens? Either at your home, you are maintaining the directory, like your relatives, your friend number and name, and that telephone exchange will provide you one booklet, a CT wise, In that they are having all the numbers like related to that city, and you can find the number and you can contact. And the third possibility is like sometimes that data is not available, still you want to contact, so you can directly call to the telephone exchange, right, the service they are providing. And once you give the name, they will provide you the number. Same functionality will be handled in a network for the authoritative server. It will maintain like that. It will maintain a directory on that server, maintain a booklet kind of thing, in that host name and its IP address are available. I will show you one video so clearly you will understand this functionality. Whereas the recursive DNS server, it's like someone who use the phone book to look up the number. So that will be like a unique kind of thing. Like a authoritative server will provide that number of phone books, and recursive will refer that book to find the host name and IP address. And the private or any organization is not having a rights to add the host name and its detail. It's going to be handled by root server or a registrars. So again, you have to note down the two types of DNS server: recursive and authoritative. Now the next, we have to discuss the two type of name services: fully qualified DNS and partially qualified DNS. Like previously we have seen one diagram, like root to many labels are there, right? So if complete path is there, that is considered as a fully qualified domain. From the root to the all the servers it contains, right? So that is considered as a fully qualified domain name, and it will maintain the namespace hierarchy also. I will show you the diagram again, and that is the reason I have revised that point to understand this. And for every domain, it will end with the dot, right? That already I have told you. Like Marwad University .se.in, and that dot contains what? It will indicate the end of that domain in that hierarchy, like this. This already we have seen, right? Domain and label. From the to the a dot this a computer. If you are reaching to that whole, so this is a fully qualified domain name which contains a computer dot b department dot top university dot edu dot. So this is considered as a fully qualified domain name. Second one, that is a partially qualified domain name, like a sub part of this fully qualified domain. If you are taking only B department, or you are taking only top university.edu dot, which is a part of education domain, right? The main domain is education, but you are taking only sub portion of that domain. So at that time, it is considered as a partially qualified domain, and which is used to specify the portion of the domain name. And every time it is not necessary that this partially qualified domain name which reach to the root. Now, when any user will send the query, so basically two approach we will discuss. First one, that is recursive query approach, and then we will discuss about iterative query approach. Now, what is this query approach? When any host will give the input, so how it will reach to that server, right? And what kind of servers are there to handle this query? See, recursive means function call itself, right? In recursive, we will go with one by one server. See, first one is requesting host. Over here, you not need to remember the same website. You can give it by your own, like google.com or our university website, right? You can write that. Okay, so user requesting from the educational domain, right? And it wants to access another URL, another website. So first, that request will send to the local DNS server. If local DNS server is having the IP address of that requested URL, it will reply to the requested client. But now suppose that local DNS server is not having information. So it will go to the root server, root DNS server. And root DNS server will do what? It will find the TLD server where the data can be available. So from the root server, the request will send to the top level DNS server. Now suppose top level domain server is not having that information, or it can give the place where the data is available. So it will come to the authoritative DNS server. And as we have learned in authoritative DNS server, it will maintain the directory for host name to IP. So definitely when the request will come to the authoritative DNS server, it will provide you the response. So over here, this request is come to the authoritative DNS server, and what it will do, it will provide the IP to that requested client. But over here, it will not directly reply to the client. Like authoritative server will not communicate with the requested client. It will communicate with the server whom request was arrived. So top level domain server is there who have sent the request to that server. So server will reply to that only. Now same way, top level DNS server will reply to root DNS server. Root DNS server will reply to local DNS, and local DNS server will reply to the requested client. So this how the reason is method is recursive, right? And this how this recursive DNS server will work. These methods are asked and very important, so you just give the title and you have to draw this diagram. So just take your time. Now see what happens every time requests have to be sent to remaining so many servers, and that server will again have to reply to that requested server. So at that time it may be time consuming. So to overcome that thing, next method which is iterative query. In this iterative query, the scenario is what? It will send the request to the any server. If server is having a response, it will directly reply to that requested client. Now over here again, the host is sending the request to the first request for both the approach, whether it is recursive or iterative. It will be sent to the local DNS. If local DNS is having a response, it will reply to the client. Else, Local DNS first it will communicate with the root DNS. If root DNS server is having a response, it will reply, else it will provide the server name where the data is available. If root DNS server is not having answer, local DNS will communicate with the top level DNS server. Top layer, same way, if they are having answer, it will reply, else it will provide the server name where the data is available. And next, it will communicate with the authoritative DNS server. And if authoritative DNS server is having answer, it will reply to the requested client. So this is how this iterative method will work. And from local DNS server, the requested client will get the response. So now that loop will be overcome over here. Now, so now it's clear to everyone how this functionality will handle the request and will give the response for both the approach, recursive and iterative. Now let me show you one video so we'll get the idea how DNS works. So you not need a voice for the same. I will explain, but let me present it first. In this video, they have explained what is DNS and how DNS will work. Like it will cover both the approaches and majorly for iterative approach. It's, you can say domain name system or domain name server. Like many servers we have discussed, local DNS, root DNS, then TLD, authoritative, so that all are nothing but this kind of servers. As a human, we can understand the remember the name, but system understand numbers. So DNS, it will provide the IP address. Now it will explain with example. Say for example, you are writing example.com. So after that, what process will begin? This dot contains, this is a fully qualified domain name, right? Like you are writing google.com. In browser you will write. So first it will check in a local DNS server, or you can say that the cache memory, right? If the data is available, it will find from that. Same we have discussed in previous two approach. Now if they are not having the IP address, so the request will send to the server. Server will first check the requested query. If root server will have the data, it will provide. Now if that server is not having the answer, so what it will tell? I don't know, but I can provide the name of the server where the data is available. So now it will go to that next server. That TLD server is also not having the answer. So it will go to the authoritative server. And all the servers informations will be handled by registrar for the DNS. And at the end, it will find the IP address of that requested URL and will reply to your browser. Then you are able to access that website. So this how this backend process will be handled by DNS. So now it's understandable. Are you getting this point, right? How DNS is working? Yeah. In our day-to-day life, we are doing this, right? But if you go with this kind of video, easily you can understand this. So again, I will start the attendance. Parallelly, you have to note down this diagram for this method. Nine 91714 80
Present, ma'am.
2 3
Present, ma'am.
4
Present, ma'am.
8 6 8
Present,
9.
ma'am.
Okay, 9
Yes, ma'am.
11 13 14 15
Yes, ma'am.
16
Present, ma'am.
29
29 present, ma'am.
32
Present, ma'am.
19.
Yes, ma'am.
92 series 1.
Yes, ma'am. Shyam.
3. 4. 5. 6.
Present, ma'am.
7.
Present, ma'am.
8.
Present, ma'am.
9.
Present, ma'am.
10.
Present, ma'am.
92 series 1. Shyam.
Yes, ma'am.
82 students, start writing your attendance in a chat.
Ma'am, Shyam present.
Yes, Shyam.